I'm Kaz from Mobile Lab. This is the second demo video for MCP Hub as a service, MHaaS for short, though that's still a working name. There's a link to the first video in the description. So, what is MHaaS? It's a web-based platform for managing MCP server environments in one place. In the last demo video, we added and configured 4 MCP servers: File System, Tally, AWS API, and Zoho Mail, and verified they were working. A quick description of each. The file system server does what it sounds like, provides access to the file system. I'll explain why it's necessary in a moment. Tally is an online form builder. Through its MCP server, you can retrieve form submissions and create new forms. AWS API is again what it sounds like, which is a server for accessing AWS. And Zoho Mail. Zoho is basically an Office suite in the same category as Google Workspace, with email, spreadsheets, and so on. Today, we'll use these 4 MCP servers to build a workflow. No coding required. Let me walk through what we'll actually build. The goal is a workflow that does the following. 1. Fetch a list of recent submissions from a Tally form. 2. Retrieve a CSV of all previous submissions from S3. 3. Compare the two to see if anyone new has submitted since the last run. 4. If there are new submissions, append those to the CSV. 5. Fetch an email template from S3. 6. For each new submission, send a personalized email with a template body customized. Here's how we'll get there. First, we launch Claude Code. A lot of people think of Claude Code as a programming tool, but it has a feature called Skills that lets you automate routine tasks. We'll use that. Claude Code has a built-in skill called Skill Creator, which is a skill for creating skills. And I admit that's a bit meta, and we'll use that to implement today's workflow. Once the skill is built, we'll write a short script so it can be run from the command line. Claude Code will write the script, not me. Then we'll run it to confirm it works. Before jumping into the demo, let me re-explain the architecture briefly. As I mentioned last time, MCP servers come in 2 types: STDO-based, which run on a local machine, and remote, which run on a remote server. The remote types, such as Notion, Slack, and GitHub MCP servers, shown on the right in the diagram, runs on each service provider's infrastructure. The STDIO type normally runs locally on the same machine as the MCP client. With MHaaS, though, STDO-based servers run inside the MCP proxy, which is a separate machine from the client, so we need to tell the LLM about that. Let's get into the demo. First, launch Claude Code. Type Claude in the terminal, and it starts. Then, call the Skill Creator. I won't cover how to install Claude Code or Skill Creator in this video, so check the description if you need that. When Skill Creator starts, it asks whether you want to create a new skill or modify an existing one. We're creating a new one. Now I need to type in what I want the skill to do. Rather than type it all out live, I'll paste from a text file I prepared beforehand. If the text is hard to read on screen, I'll put it in the description as well. The prompt starts with, I want to create a new skill. The skill will use MCP servers, meaning MHaaS, and getting a bit technical here, we'll send an API key as a bearer token in the authorization header. The skill has 4 categories of MCP tools: File System, AWS API, Zoho Mail, and Tally. Then I describe what the skill should do. Step 1. Use the Tally tool to fetch recent submissions and save them to shared recent submissions.json. Step 2. Pull the CSV of all previous submissions from S3 and save it to shared all submissions, CSV. If the file doesn't exist, treat it as empty. Step 3. Compare the 2 files. If there are new submissions in recent submissions.json, convert them to CSV and append to all submissions.csv. If there are none, display no new submissions and stop there. Step 4. Use the AWS API tool to fetch the email template from S3. Step 5. For each new submission, replace last name and first name in the template with actual values, then send the email using Zoho Mail. The first line of the template is the subject. Everything after is the body. That covers what the skill needs to do. Next, a few technical notes for Claude Code. Since non-engineer colleagues may run or modify this skill, I'm telling it to avoid custom scripts and non-standard libraries where possible, so the skill runs in their environments too. Without this instruction, Claude Code often tries to write its own program and run that instead of using skills and MCP tools. Finally, 3 notes related to MHaaS architecture. There is exactly one MCP server running on a separate machine. All tool requests go through it. MCP tools can read and write files under/shared on the MCP server machine, but cannot access files on this local machine. The AI agent can access files on this local machine, but cannot directly access files under/shared, and that's what the file system tool is for. These matter. Without them, the agent will try to directly access remote files or use MCP tools to read local files, and things break. Let me also take a look at the email template. The first line is the subject. The body has placeholders for first and last name, which get replaced with actual values. Let's paste the text into Claude Code. Done. After a brief pause, it comes back with a few questions. First, the API key. For demo purposes, I'll just give it directly. Normally, you'd handle secrets more carefully, but we're skipping that here. One advantage of MHaaS, by the way, secrets are stored encrypted in the MHaaS database, so the only secret you need locally is the API key. Second, it asks for the exact names of the MCP tools. I told it to check with the MCP server directly. Third, which tally form fields to include in the CSV. I said all of them. Fourth, it confirms the email template location and asks whether it should be configurable. I said use the location I gave, no need to make it configurable. Fifth, where to save the skill. The common pattern is to put project-specific skills in the project directory and general-purpose ones under the home directory. For now, I told it to save to the current directory. That should be enough information. It should now start building the skill. Claude Code will ask for permission before running commands. Walking through each one is genuinely instructive if you want to understand what's happening under the hood. For today, I'll just approve everything and move on. It says it has all the information it needs and is starting to build the skill. Let's wait. The skill is ready. Before testing, Claude Code asks 3 more things. First, is there a safe email address it can use for test sends rather than real data? The email addresses in this tally form are fine for testing, so I told it to use the actual data. Second, what from address to use when sending? I said to use the company's info at address. Third, whether to include partial tally form data. Tally apparently stores in-progress submissions too. I told it to only use completed submissions. Now we wait. Tests passed. It found 2 small issues during testing and fixed those as well. I'll name this conversation Follow-up Email Skill so I can come back to it later. Then exit. Let's run the skill ourselves now. Before testing, I'll delete the all submissions.csv from S3 to simulate a first run. Start a new Claude Code session. I ask it to run the skill in this directory. It asks for the MCP proxy API key. I gave this during skill creation, but I'll provide it again here. It asks to create mcp.json file. Looking at the path, it's trying to create it somewhere other than the current directory. That would work, but for today, I'll say no and tell it to use the current directory instead. It asks again, this time to create mcp.json in the current directory. I say yes. This file specifies the MCP server locations and configuration. Now that the file is created, I'll restart Claude Code and run the skill again. When Claude Code starts, it asks for permission to use the MCP servers listed in mcp.json. Approved. Then I tell it again to run the skill in this directory. The skill ran, but it says there are no new submissions in the last 5 days. I'll extend the range to 15 days and ask it to run again. This time, it found 2 new submissions and sent emails to both. Looks good. Exit Claude Code. Now I'll create a shell script so the skill can be run more easily. I named the skill creation conversation follow-up email skill earlier, so I'll reopen that. Right now, running the skill requires launching Claude Code and telling it what to do manually. I want to automate this so it can be triggered programmatically. There's a mechanism called cron for running programs on a schedule. I asked Claude Code to create a script that can be registered with cron. The script is done. One note: it uses the dangerously skip permissions flag, which grants Claude Code full command execution and file access without asking. Not ideal for production, but fine for this demo. I'll cover how to avoid this in a separate post. Exit Claude Code. Same as before. Delete the S3 file and run the script. It takes a minute or two. I'll fast forward. Done. 2 submissions found, emails sent to both. Let's run it again. This time there should be no new submissions, so no emails. Fast forward. Done. It found the same 2 submissions, but both had already been emailed, so no new emails were sent. In this demo, we used MHaaS MCP servers and Claude Code Skill Creator to automate a business workflow, with no programming required. With MHaaS, you only need to configure one MCP server and one API key in a local config file. That's it. Non-engineers can use MCP-based automation without much friction. One more thing. MHaaS is close to a beta release. Right now, I'm accepting participants for an early access program. Participants will get access to the beta when it launches and provide feedback. In return, I'll give them the starter plan, also a working name, for free, permanently, once MHaaS officially launches. If that sounds interesting, use the URL or QR code on screen to fill out the form. Thanks for watching.